Good afternoon, everybody. Elizabeth Statlander, marriage and family therapist and mental health counselor, talking to you today. This is day 9 of the corona crisis, and as most of you know, hopefully a lot of you know, I've been going live every day since we started to just kind of make sure that everybody out there has an outlet to get some information and some mental health and relationship advice while, our lives have been completely changed and completely flipped upside down in the last week and a half. So much has happened, so much has changed, and every day feels like a new day. So we go to bed knowing some information, we wake up with all new information, and talking to clients and friends and family throughout this whole process, it really feels like everybody has a very different idea about what's going on. Some people are, just panicked and anxious to the maximum. Some people are still feeling, like it's kind of a joke, and then everyone else sort of is in the middle somewhere. So this has just been an outlet, and I've gotten some really positive feedback about just doing that. Now, normally Tuesdays, every other Tuesday, I do my show on relationships. It's a live show. I have my producer, Tia, with me, who we miss you today. She's not here. Hi, Tia. And we just do all relationships because I am a marriage and family therapist and mental health counselor, and I do specialize in couples and families issues, although I do a plenty of individual as well. So, that's usually the basis of this show. We've talked about things like personality disorders and infidelity and, just fighting and all kinds of things. So today, since I still want to make sure I'm bringing everybody some good information, some good news information, start out with what's new, what's going on with the coronavirus in the United States, I wanted to incorporate a relationship aspect to today. And so yesterday's live, I said, in light of, keeping this really centered on mental health and relationships, can we talk about something relationship oriented? So my challenge to everybody was to please, think of one person that you haven't spoken to in a really long time, or maybe you had a fight or falling out with, and to reach out to them. And then join me today and tell me your stories. And I did it, and I promised to share my story. So I hope that I can hear all that stuff from all of you out there. I want to talk about what's new with the coronavirus because I think it's important. I've been really trying to keep up on this so I can bring you guys the most relevant information. So last night, we had a huge press conference with President Trump and the lovely, and she is lovely, physician that he has as leading up the task force. And there was some really interesting information and some really good information and some exciting information. So, and I think what was discussed at the press conference yesterday will be a great lead-in to talking about mental health. So first, let's talk about what's new. So what's new last night, according to President Trump and his task force, what's new and very exciting is that we now have the hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin cocktail, which saved somebody's life in New York who had already said goodbye to his family, had figured this was it, he was going to die from the coronavirus. In the last hour, the physicians whoever was treating him got this medication, gave it to him, and within 4 hours, he had recovered, in a sense, come away from death's door and is doing really well. And that was really encouraging. And there was another physician that I heard interviewed both last night and this morning who's in an area of New York State. He gave 350 people the same cocktail, which azithromycin or Z-Pak, a lot of you may have taken it from bronchial infections. I know I have. And then the anti-malaria drug, and together, I think he might have said he gave some zinc oxide too, but don't quote me on that. And all 350 people were doing extremely well and did not need hospitalized. So This is huge, and I don't know why the news media isn't focusing on this. They're kind of reporting it, but then they're going back to how many people died and, how awful everything is. But there is some positive information out there. And the other thing that I thought was really exciting that President Trump mentioned was that he understands that to shut the United States down for too long would potentially cause more problems than the coronavirus itself. And I think he makes a really good point. And what he said when he was, questioned or attacked by the press on this statement, what he explained is that he made a statement, I think, on Twitter yesterday that said the cure cannot be worse than the thing that's trying to be cured. And I'm mixing that up. But what he's basically saying is that, if you think back to, I don't know how many people study the Great Depression in school, but I did. And there were huge amounts of suicides, people dying from diseases because they couldn't afford food. It was awful. And something that, my generation and probably most of the age of people that are watching this are in their 40s and 50s. And, it was so horrible that President Trump feels that if we shut down the United States, that we could potentially go into a type of depression that would cause so much mental anguish, depression, and suicide, because people would literally be wiped out financially. That result from shutting everything down would wind up being worse than the problems caused directly from the virus. And, people really gave him a hard time for that. I think he's right. And I think what a lot of people don't understand, a lot of people are very focused on, the human rights and the human social issues of politics. And I am too. I'm very, I guess you could call me liberal in that aspect. But I still think that our economy is essential to the health of this country. And just because you care about that doesn't mean that you don't care about people. And, I'm a private practitioner. I own my own business. All my clients are basically entrepreneurs and hardworking people. And to shut down the country any more than a few weeks would absolutely be devastating. And so the fact that he said, "Don't worry, America, that's not going to happen," to me was hopeful and exciting, because what's been going on with my friends and my family and my clients is it's so depressing to think of where this could lead financially, people in this country, that it just gave me hope. And I think it gave a lot of other people hope, because the market did go up over, a significant amount today. Now, we did fall 37%. We have a long way to go, but it was up, up significantly. So thank you to President Trump for giving us some hope. I think this country needs it right now. Whether you like him or not is irrelevant. I haven't watched the news yet today to see what's going on in Congress, but I thought those were the really important things that have happened with the coronavirus. And I think you guys should know that. And I don't know why the media is not focusing on that, and they're focusing on freaking everybody out. So let's get through this week. Trump and his advisors are going to then reevaluate where we're at. You focus mainly on the mortality rate, which is the most, that tells you have to look at that, because that tells you what's really happening. And 99% of people recover. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about on the news media how all these people are dying, which is horrible and sad and tragic, and it's important, and don't get me wrong. But there are good things that are happening. So what they discover from looking at the mortality rates from the data that's been given in other countries and our own is that the 1% approximately of people who are dying have not one, not two, but three underlying health conditions. So, I think that that's hopeful. And we might, on a limited basis, be able to open our businesses back up as early as next week. Just depends on how we're doing as a country. So let's look at the positives. And Now, let's get into the relationship piece of this. Now, thank you for saying that. We need to take politics out of that. Thank you, Bella, for saying that. Salute to Jalal. I'm so glad you're updating on this because I don't always watch your yeah, I know. And it's hard to catch up with all these press conferences, but I've been trying really hard to keep up with them because I know it's so important to my viewers and my clients to be informed and be informed of the good things, because we already all know the bad stuff, but there are some breakthroughs, and I think this medication thing is huge. So let's talk about what his assertion was last night. As a therapist, I think he's right. I think that if we continue to keep the country shut down, this country is it runs on businesses. Love it or hate it, that's the way it is, and that's the way most cultures are based upon the health of their economy. And so if you keep that closed down and you take that away from the culture, then you are going to have suicides. You are going to have major health problems. You're going to have, people jumping off bridges. And it's serious and it's real. And the suicide rates, I'm particularly concerned about, some of my clients who are completely alone, that have no family, that have no significant other, that are very isolated. They have nowhere to go in these times. And, they've all been laid off. Anyone in a sales position pretty much in most of our country does not have a job. Most of the people in the restaurant business do not have a job. And it's not because anybody wanted to let any of these people go, but these businesses could not financially make it without being in operation. We rely on income, money coming in. So what are people supposed to do? Well, I worry that they are going to become suicidal. And I am with President Trump on the idea of, hey, if we're doing okay with the coronavirus and we get under control, let's get back to work. Let's keep this country moving and make sure we can provide health care and food and groceries and restaurants. We need the restaurants to open. My God, please, because we need them to open so that our grocery shelves aren't so empty. There's just so much to this. So I think Trump has a good point that if this goes on for too long, we could definitely have suicides and major depression along with anxiety. My family owns a restaurant, so I'm very concerned for small businesses, but it's just as important for big businesses to get back so people can get back to work. Okay, thank you, Bella, for that point, because she's right. We want to hate big businesses. I don't, but a lot of people I hate big business. They're greedy. They're this, they're that. But the truth of the matter is they're the ones employing everybody in the country. So if our major corporations are not operating and they're out of business because they can't have any employees there and they have to shut down, where does everybody think all these people are going to go? Do you know, what portion of America is employed by large corporations and big business? A lot. So if big business can't operate and be healthy, we're in big trouble. And like it or not, it's the big and small businesses that are ones that are taking initiative and building ventilators and, building surgical, making surgical masks. And we need big business in this country. Okay, it's kind of like wartime where, steel factories converted into, gun factories back in World War II. All kinds of things our country is helping out. I saw a small business owner, an owner of a pizza shop last night, who took a line of credit of $50,000 to make sure that his employees would have money and have all their bills paid because he was so concerned about the employees that he had. And this is what makes our country, so wonderful. And we can't, live in a vacuum and say, corporations are against people. I'm not going to debate whether or not that's true. But I will say that Bella is right on We need big businesses in operation because it all flows out to all the rest of us. One thing feeds another, and it's a big cycle and a big system in this country. And it was doing so well. And look at me as a private practitioner. If my clients were getting laid off and they're worried about money, they're not going to come in for therapy. They're not going to spend their money right now. Not most of them. They're not going to be able to. So then that puts me in a bad place. All the money I spend going out to dinner, buying things, then that's going to stop. And that's just a little tiny pinhole. You know, I'm nobody, I'm one person, but think about these companies who employ, you know, thousands of people. I mean, it's just not possible. And I know that some of the companies are hiring. Domino's Pizza's hiring. I know there was a couple others. There was, I think, Amazon is hiring in their warehouses. There's actually like 10 companies hiring right now that you could use those as like a bridge job until you can get your other job back. But I digress because I want to get back to this relationship issue. So Trump says if we don't open back up and get the country running, we're going to have huge suicide rates that'll be greater than the 1% of people who are dying from the coronavirus. And then we're going to have major depression problems, not meaning economic depression, which we would, but he was talking about emotional depression over this. So, you know, if any of you have been impacted by any of these things that are happening and experiencing depression or anxiety because of all this, I want to hear about it because I want to see if there's any way that I could help you and give you some perspective. And I hope that the information I'm reporting to you, because it's good information, it's hopeful information, instead of the end of the world apocalyptic crap you see on TV all day with drums and, you know, and it's horrible. I mean, they have death tolls like they used to list the numbers of the stock market with their little red up or down. It's horrible. And it scares people and it makes them horrified. And it's terrible. So I know I've been talking still to clients, doing counseling, people are scared. They're depressed. They're worried. They want an end date. If there's no end date, I mean, what's going to happen to everybody's life? What's going to happen to people who can't pay their bills for so many months? I mean, the government's not going to carry months and months and months. I mean, they can't. So what's happening out there? What's happening to our relationships? Our relationships right now are looking very different than they did a week and a half ago. This is day 9. So, and I'm starting from last Monday. So this is day 9. How have our relationships changed? Do we have stories of our relationships going better? Are they going worse because of stress and anxiety? A lot of my clients and friends who have little children, young children, told me they're absolutely going crazy. They don't know what to do. I know that one of my family members' children are doing an online distance learning, and she said, well, now I'm teacher all day on top of mom, on top of not being able to leave the house. This is craziness, Elizabeth. Like, what do I do? And this is the experience of an awful lot of people that I'm hearing, especially if you have little children. And one thing I talked about yesterday was everyone get together as a family and agree on dividing up space, whether it's in a bedroom or a computer room or living room, whatever you have, designated as somebody's special private space. So if you want to just be left alone, when you see mommy in the kitchen, everybody has to stay out for 15 minutes and half an hour, whatever we can get people. I've heard of people, some of my clients told me they were hiding in their pantries and their bathrooms just to get a break. So that puts a lot of pressure on our families and our relationships. And there's a lot of, probably a lot of arguing going on because everyone's in each other, on top of each other all the time. I want to hear about your marriages and how things are going. Let's see, somebody's writing, I feel like my relationships with my family have gotten stronger during this. Even though we aren't physically together, we talk and FaceTime a couple times a day, just checking in, saying hi, and checking on each other. I have had that experience as well. I have had more free time in the past 9 days than I think I've had in years, literally. And so I've been trying to spend more time with people, whether it's FaceTime, whether it's, just even seeing each other but socially distanced. I've been spending a lot more time with my boyfriends, and we haven't been going out, which is something that distracts you when you're out. So we've been just watching a lot of movies and TV. I mean, in some ways, I do think it can be a little bit relaxing if you take a positive attitude, like Bella is, like I'm trying to do, like I'm trying to put out there that, hey, this is a slowdown. What if we know that on, March 31st, and I'm making this up, is that we can all go back to work and this little vacation here is over? How are you going to feel differently right in this moment than you would if you didn't have an end date? And he's like, oh my God, this is go on for months. It would be very, very different. But I do think this is a time where we can make that opportunity. We can take that opportunity to reach out and spend more time with our family and friends. And, I know I miss my niece and nephew so much, and I want to see them so badly, and I can't. But I'm hoping at least we can FaceTime and I can see them that way. So that being said, I put out a relationship challenge yesterday, and I said, maybe if we all try to reach out and do something that is maybe out of the norm for us, which is reaching out to someone that maybe we had a falling out with and we haven't spoken to in a long time. Maybe we just haven't talked to them. Someone where there's been some distance, and, reach out to them, a text, an email, a phone call, whatever, and just see how they're doing through all of this. We have the time, why not? And I really want to hear everybody's stories. I don't know if people are comfortable writing them on the screen or not, but I'm going to share my story. So, and you don't have to give me names of people or anything. I just want to hear like the general story of who you, got in touch with. So I called one of my best friends that I haven't talked to in probably 6 months or more. And I was thinking of her, and I went ahead and texted her, not knowing, it's been a while, what would be on the other end, but I just wanted to let her know I was thinking about her. And I got a really positive response, and we're going to talk tonight when I'm done with work. So I'm really excited, and I'm really glad that I did that. Now, that doesn't always happen. I mean, she could have just ignored me. She could have not been happy to hear from me. I don't know. But she gave me a really warm response. And I think that if ever there's a time where people are going to be giving you some good responses, some warm responses, as opposed to another time, this would be it. So did anybody out there do it? Does anyone feel like sharing their story? I would love to hear about it. I took the challenge and reached out via text to my sister-in-law that I don't have the best relationship with. It felt good to just say hi and check in. Oh, that's awesome. That's beautiful. And if I could ask you another question, how were you received? Did she receive you in kind? I mean, did she respond to your check-in? I'm just wondering, because that could really be, you never know, that could break through and go a long way. I mean, that could mean that maybe she's going to change the way that, she treats you sometime, or maybe, it'll say to her, hey, that was really sweet. Maybe I'll give her a chance. I mean, I don't know. It can mean a lot of things. So if you feel like letting me know that would be great. But I wonder how all the marriages are out there. I know that moms and dads are overwhelmed with being at home, being on top of each other with the kids. But I wonder how our marriages are being affected. She did respond. It wasn't a deep conversation, but it was a start. See, now I hope other people did it. I know it's uncomfortable, and it seems like, even when I try to have conversations with clients and family about something else, it always comes back to the coronavirus. Like, I feel like that's all people want to talk about right now. And so, okay, like if that's what everybody wants to talk about, we'll do it. But I am a relationship counselor, and I am a mental health counselor, and I want to know how people are doing mentally through all of this. I want to know if people are feeling anxious, if they're letting their anxiety, get the best of them, because it can do that. Today, a friend of mine and I went down to Shadyside to Whole Foods, which I did last Tuesday. Which interesting, in 1 week, what changed. When we arrived, the parking lot was empty. Not empty, but it was like not even half full, which for Whole Foods and Shadyside is unusual. And when we went last week, the parking lot was much busier. We still had no problem parking, which is unusual for that particular store. But today it was like plenty of spaces. So I think more people are taking this more seriously and staying home. I mean, I notice, so I'm thinking probably a lot of people are. So then when we went to get in line, there was a young lady outside who was social distancing everybody who wanted to go in. So she was keeping all of us about 6 feet apart. So everyone made this big U-shaped line because there had to be so many feet in between us, and they were only allowing so many people to be in the store. Now, I didn't ask what that number was. I don't know what it was. If I had to take a guess, I would say maybe 40 to 50 people. Didn't feel like there was many people in there, which was actually kind of nice because we could just take our time and, go through all the aisles, and there was nobody bumping into anyone. So it was actually kind of nice. And I thought that was really very socially conscious of Whole Foods to do that. And I took with me my all natural disinfecting wipes, and I used these on the carts and the door handles and things like that, just to make sure that I'm not touching anything that might infect me or somebody else. I also I'm big on building up the immune system, and so I want to take lots of vitamin C every day and drink lots of juices. So I bought a vitamin C spray, which has, it has, I don't even know, it's got like a couple 100 milligrams of vitamin C, so you can use this. I usually do like the chewables, but they were out, and the vitamin C was completely gone at Whole Foods. So that tells me that people are being somewhat conscious of their immune system. I drank this whole thing of organic juice when I got home. This is all vitamin C and things that can keep that immune system up, because I would prefer to prevent rather than build up my immune system instead of being paranoid about walking outside or going near somebody. I don't know. I'm not going to do anything stupid, but I think that we haven't been told much to build up our immune systems, which I think is important. And that's another thing we're not hearing in the media. We're not hearing two major things in our news media. We're not hearing about what can we control. What we can control is our health. What we can control is obviously not congregating around too many people at one time, and just, keeping your distance and doing smart things when you're in public. They're not talking about that at all, which really kills me. And they're barely talking about mental health. The first person I heard mention anything about mental health was President Trump yesterday. That's the first I've heard of it in 9 days, which I think is pathetic, that he's the only person addressing how serious this is for mental health, how people are going to become suicidal, they're going to become depressed, and no one's talking about this. So no one's talking about how to build up your immune system. Nobody's talking about mental health. Why are we not talking about our family relationships and how this is changing the structure of the family, the structure of our relationships? Most people only see each other for a couple hours in the evening who are married or together. Now you're seeing each other all the time, but nobody is talking about these important issues, and it just drives me crazy. I don't know why we're not talking about that, because stress and anxiety, actually, it's a proven fact that anxiety, stress, depression, it lowers your immune system. It's a proven medical fact. So there's a direct correlation between stress, depression, and your immune system. So why are we not focusing on this aspect? I mean, it just blows my mind. We're not talking about any of this stuff that's really important. And I think that is too bad. And I think it's a shame that our news media, is harping on, deaths and cases like it's the stock market, instead of talking about who's surviving. They're freaking everybody out, so everyone will stay glued and addicted to the television, but it's not really, it's not healthy. It freaks people out. It causes major anxiety, and anxiety always leads to depression, because if you're very anxious, it's a very uncomfortable way to live. And so people get very depressed because they know that their anxiety is limiting the things that they can do, because it's interrupting their sleep, it's interrupting their diet and how they're eating. It prevents their social life from flourishing, because people just want to isolate when they're anxious and depressed. So I think that, right now mental health is a very serious issue. I don't know about suicides going up just yet, but I think the suicide rate will go up if this goes on for too long. And I'm so pleased to know that at least President Trump, he gets that. He understands that, or someone who's advising him gets that. And how important finances are. Finances, again, like it or not, are at the, underneath everything. Because if people think they can't pay their bills, they get completely stressed. They get completely anxious. And now we have, and again, I haven't seen the news today, so correct me, anybody, if I'm wrong, but Congress still hasn't signed this goddamn relief bill already. I mean, why is this so difficult for them to do? Sign it. Done. Like, people need relief and they need help now, or we're going to see a spike in suicides. We might see a spike of divorce, probably, if this goes on for months. You're going to see a spike in domestic abuse. You're going to see a spike in depression. You're going to see a spike in all the mental health areas that, can kill anybody's life or relationship. So why are we not talking about that, news media? If someone could answer me, I'd like to know. Nancy Stroud, I would maybe suggest that nobody is talking about it. I'm getting emails every day giving suggestions for health and wellness along with family relationships. I guess it depends where your resources for both draw. Just my personal observations. Well, I'm glad to know that, Nancy. I think my clients are talking about it. I think my friends are talking about it, but I'm saying our general media is not talking about it. That's, just to be clear. And again, I don't watch all the news stations all the time, so maybe I'm wrong. But from what I've seen, it's barely being spoken about. So let me be clear, Nancy, I apologize. It is not about people. It's not about us. I'm referring to the media not talking about it. And I haven't seen that. So, if somebody else has, let me know. But I've been watching quite a bit of news, and it's all videos of people and stretchers and people in their uniforms. And, it's all about crisis. And that's what the majority of our country is being fed. from what I can see. But I do appreciate you commenting, and I appreciate you watching. I think the clients that we have are already aware of mental health, and that's why they're our clients. I'm sure medical doctors are getting a lot of questions, but as far as the mass media, I'm not seeing it. So I'm hoping that this at least, puts out some awareness and, gets people to at least think about it, to think about what, if this continues, what's going to happen. I think we need to get people relief immediately. People who have nothing, who can't afford to buy food for their kids. I mean, this is going to get really serious if something isn't done. And so let's talk about, before I wrap it up, let's talk about what our resources are. The news media absolutely are still shock jocks that still look to sensationalism for their ratings. It's ridiculous. Okay, so I'm glad, Nancy, I cleared that up, for you. It's horrible what I'm seeing on the news media. But let's talk about Pittsburgh, Allegheny County, this greater area of what our resources are. There is a crisis service in Allegheny County, and most counties have crisis lines. And there's Resolve Crisis Unit in Allegheny County that if you call 911 and you tell them you're feeling suicidal, which is always the first call. If you're feeling suicidal, call 911 immediately, and they can connect you to all the crisis resources. Don't try and remember a phone number or anything like that. 911. You feel suicidal, call 911. They can get the right people out to you to assess you, to help, you just kind of calm down and get through your anxiety. Call 911 and tell them that you need help and that you need resources, and they will get them to you immediately. That's the most important thing for anyone to remember. 911. We all know it. We all have it in our head. It's basic. If you're feeling suicidal, call 911 immediately. And then after you call 911 and everyone's on their way to your home, then I would suggest calling a friend. And then let's see what happens from there. If you're just under a lot of anxiety, having a lot of marital problems, in the Pittsburgh, Allegheny County, or Westmoreland area, I am, working today. I am working every day, 7 days a week. I am here for you. 412-376-7322, day or night. I am not a crisis hotline, so I am not the right person to call if you're in crisis, because I may not get your phone call in enough time. So you want to make sure you call 911. But if you're just feeling anxious and under a lot of stress, like a lot of people, absolutely, I'm available. And again, 7 days a week, I'm available. Morning, noon, night, just call me, write to me on Facebook, and I will make myself available to you for sure. And we can set up a session via Skype or FaceTime, or we can do it on the phone. And hopefully by next week, God willing, I'll be back at the office. But I want to be a part of, what our public health officials are asking, which is to stay home. So I'm staying home, and I have my little studio here, and it's fine. It's working out fine. So if there's no further questions or comments, then, I'm going to wrap this up, and I'll conclude with just saying that there are good things happening. Don't believe everything you see, and don't listen to all the doom and gloom, because everybody has their own spin on what's happening. They all have their own spin and interpretation of the facts. So I think that keep that in mind when you're watching. And like Nancy was saying earlier, they love to shock you because that's how they keep you. And then it's so addicting. You're afraid if you don't watch, you're going to miss something. There's positive things happening. I'm going live every day. We're talking about all these issues. I still miss talking about marriages and relationships and personality disorders and anxiety, but nobody really wants to talk about that right now. But, you know, I'm going to, you know, hopefully we'll get back to that soon. But Nancy gave another piece of advice. We ought to call our local weather service to suggest they place those protocols or numbers on their ticker on the bottom. I can't see you. On the bottom of, okay, I think, you know, what Nancy's saying is, you know, yeah, we could call the weather service and ask if they could put the protocols for suicide on the ticker on the bottom of their screen. And that's a great idea, Nancy. You know, thank you for that. Maybe we can all do that wherever we are, wherever we live. Thank you, Elizabeth, for these videos. They are so helpful and informative. You're really helping people. Thank you for saying that. I certainly hope I'm helping people. I hope that, you know, talking about this from a mental health perspective and not a doom and gloom perspective, and just, you know, throwing in a little reporting of what's new and what's happening today is helpful. And I'll be back here tomorrow, and if anyone wants to talk relationships, lay it on me. I miss it. I enjoy being there for everyone, but I do miss my regular, you know, relationship talks online and everything. But anyway, we'll get back to that. This is what's important right now. So thank you, everybody, for watching. And if you want to take Nancy's advice and you live somewhere in Allegheny or Westmoreland County, or you live anywhere in the country, I like her idea of, you know, calling, you know, your local stations and saying, hey, we need to keep these crisis hotline numbers available to the public, because this really isn't being addressed. So let's make sure we stay connected to each other, that we stay in really close contact with anyone who's alone, that we are patient with the people we're stuck in the houses with, that we check on our parents, our elderly parents, you know, without being maybe, you know, too close, but dropping things off that they need, being in contact with people as much as we can. And I think if we all do those things, we will all get through this. And, you know, I hope and pray that this is going to be over soon. And I think that with a wonderful country like the United States, and seeing the way people are pulling together, I have no doubt that we will definitely crush this. So again, if you need me, 412-376-7322, actuationcounseling.com, Actuation Counseling on YouTube, Actuation Counseling Making Change Happen on Facebook, and Actuation Counseling on Instagram. And you can always also put in Elizabeth Statlander, and you will find all those pages that way. So best of health and wealth and prosperity to everybody during this time. Stay close, everyone, and I'll see everyone back here tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.